We're in another top four match of the Champions League here in Sapporo. On the left, we have Dragapult Xatu, a new archetype erupting from the Twilight Masquerade set, or in Japan, I don't know what they're called, but we're going to figure that out later. On the right side, we have Gardevoir, a deck that just will not die. Gardevoir here is paired with the new Munkidori that attaches a dark type energy and moves 3 damage counters from one side to the other. On the other side, we have Dragapult Xatu, like I said, that spreads a ton of energy. Who do you think is favored here, Victor, and why? Break down the two win conditions for the deck for me, and what's going to really happen.
So you would think that Gardevoir is like super unfavored into the matchup because I mean Gardevoir puts a lot of damage on its board already. So you have your Drifloon as one of your main attackers, and it's basically one little ping away from getting knocked out. So Dragapult in theory could gust around it, take multiple knockouts in one turn. But I hesitate to say that it is actually Dragapult favored. I know that there must be some sort of plan for the Gardevoir player to have made it this far, and I think it has to do with that Monkey Droid and the Dark Energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Munkidori and the Cresselia combination, moving the energies off the board or the damage off the board, means that you can
Yeah.
mitigate like a ton of the damage counters that are being placed on the board, especially the ones that you place on your own board. And you can pick off the Dragapult player's Dracloak, and then if you can go back and recycle that Cresselia in an upcoming turn, you can take out another Dracloak. And if you maybe can trade Cresselias for Dracloaks, you can pick off the board and knock out that one big Dragapult and put yourself in a position to win from that board state. And I think Dragapult has to put something like Rotom into play to keep accelerating cards and figure out what they're doing. And that also might become a free prize down the line. Um, so those are potential options. A Munkidori softens some attackers up for you as well. But you do see that the Dragapult deck does play things like Radiant Alakazam. But there are things like that make the deck a little bit awkward, where like the two energy typings, needing to use Zatu's
Mm.
ability to actually power up your board. Very few energies actually in this deck compared to what I thought there would be. Artisan also available here to set up. We're gonna see a heavy ball. I don't know why we didn't shuffle our deck if we didn't heavy ball. You know what I'm saying? But there's a Rotom being pulled out of the prize cards. We see the prize cards here are Skateboard, Xatu, Dragapult, and an energy. The energy might be super relevant. I think everything else is probably irrelevant for the scope of this game. Um, and
The Monkey Dory is super interesting because when I was looking at the translations for this set, it was something that I overlooked a little bit, but now thinking back on it, the power level of this card is like it's easy to overlook because of the high HP Pokemon that exists right now, like the 320 HP Dragapult,
absolutely,
330 HP Charizard. But like, if you think about the history of the game, healing three and putting it anywhere is like absurd. Like that would have been like ban level in certain years.
absolutely, and like with a deck like Gardevoir that can already accelerate that damage to yourself, it's kind of a no-brainer how it works. The Xatu player just firmly committing to the fact that they're not going to be using potentially Xatu this game, because if the Guardia player gets Candy Guardy, Flutter Mane knockout on the active, that's not good. You don't have a Xatu to accelerate energy for the rest of the game, but we just Ionoed them into uh,
Ooh.
double Ralts, and pretty much the rest of the hand is dead, and just a simple instant charge to set up um, as we're going. Counter catcher, nothing crazy. Ultra Ball in the hand though, so Ultra Ball into a Curlia is all it takes for the ball to get rolling. There's one Curlia in the hand actually, so
Yeah,
I think we
there's
always
one.
start with the Curlia here. Artisan out a Ralts. Just get our board set up. I think more than anything, don't really need to do too much here. Do a quick prize check while we're here. This player is playing Iridas, so there's a way for us to get the Hyperblower, but that does not too much this turn. Honestly, we can get it next turn and have a pretty big impact. Um, so we can go ahead and just set up our board as possible. Um, fourth routes in hand as well. But to preserve information, you want to go ahead and Curlia first. I just don't think we need to use Manaphy, so yep, free discard. There is a Drifloon in the hand and an Ultra Ball for another Curlia. A nice and easy setup. Keep the board rolling. So now, like this way, if your one Curlia gets bossed, um, you have another Curlia to evolve up and figure out your damage caps and what you want to do with your turn. Um, Counter Catcher probably a good card to keep around. So maybe we just get rid of the Drifloon. Yep. Just draw two. Set up our hand. Nothing great here. I see an Irida pop into the hand. So Irida is able to just continue our setup going. Probably grabbing Greninja. And some other card. This is the top 4 of the Sapporo League, Champions League. Probably
Something
gonna
else I want to mention
absolutely.
about the Munkidori synergy is that normally Drifloon with Bravery Charm puts it at 120 HP, and you can only Psychic Embrace to it, so it has 100 damage, which means its attack, Balloon Burst, only does 300, which wouldn't be enough to knock out Dragapult EX. But Munkidori, you can actually heal the Drifloon, and then you can use that as a damage mod, or you can simply just put that 30 damage on the bench, and then now Drifloon would be at what 70,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can ping it 2 more times to be at 110, which would also be enough to knock out a Dragapult EX. So you now have ways to knock out huge Pokemon without the need for that Hero's Cape.
Now, the Gardevoir player's board is almost as ideal as it could be for a turn 2 setup. Flutterman in the active 2, making so that Xatu can't accelerate from the active. It has to manually retreat before it can accelerate, but it can only accelerate to bench Pokemon, which means if you attach for turn, you can't power up a Dragapult this turn with the Natu in the active. Actually, a super unfortunate situation the way it's laid
Yeah.
out. So they get one more turn of doing whatever they want as the Gardevoir player. Arvin coming through for setup. Maybe you have a switch card or Prime Catcher, most notably. Would be a great card here because you can Prime Catcher up something, but at the same time, you need to have a Candy Dragapult to do something as well, and I don't think they have Candy Dragapult in hand or the pieces for Candy Dragapults. We're going to go ahead and
think
read
this player
Munkidori.
played Unfair Stamp.
I think he does play Unfair Stamp, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and read Munkidori. I feel like that's a very reasonable thing to do as well.
Make sure you know what it does.
Absolutely.
To be fair to the players, this set is extremely new. Like, it just came out.
This came out on like Friday for them, like or like a
Yeah.
few days ago. So like these players get the cards legal immediately here. We're going to go ahead and see a quick search. Probably grabbing Candy and Sealstone. Just kind of setting up our board, I feel like, makes the most sense here. We're going to go back in, I think. And this turn, I think we're just going to take it nice and slow. Vessel for 2 cards. 2 energy cards here. Set up our board a little bit further. And I think it makes a ton of sense to just draw 3 again. Set up our board. Play it super slow. We can't really use Xatu in this board position. There's only 2 Psychics and 2 Fires left in the deck, so we need to be able to cycle those back into the deck at some point. One thing I've noticed a lot about Dragapult decks is they don't cycle through their deck very well. So you can stick them pretty hard with a late game Iono or whatever and figure it out from there.
Ideally, as Gardevoir, you might want to take out this Run V on the bench for 2 prizes, but it is hard for Gardevoir to do that without the help of something like that Screamtail, which you can't use because 1, your bench is full, and 2, there's a Manaphy in play. So we'll see if they're able to get there. We do see the attach, retreat.
And 70
And-
damage probably coming through from the Dragapult this turn.
Yeah.
But if you're the Gardevoir player, you just have another free attachment to this Flutterman. This Flutterman that is so unassuming. And if you could even evolve, and if you even get the Dark Energy onto the Munkidori, you could even move damage. So I think we're just going to go for the Evo. I like that quite a bit more than the 70 damage.
Yeah, I think so too.
Dracloak here just now sets up your board. Getting a Dracloak into play gets you to see more cards. You get the Xatu into play as well, so you can actually accelerate the Psychics that you drew into in your hand. A prize card just flipped over.
Oh no. Well, we'll see.
But there was enough deck searches, so knowledge should be readily available. It
Right.
might still become a double prize penalty, which would impact. I think they're just going to shuffle. They're pausing the board state. I think they're just going to go ahead and shuffle it up because it was a complete accident. I mean, I think this is completely fair, right? Like we've seen deck knowledge. There should be no reason for a penalty moving onwards. Yep.
I agree that there shouldn't be, although the ruling in the West would be that there is a double prize penalty.
Not with accidents anymore. Things have changed since my ruling happened.
Oh, really?
Actually, yep. The ruling that happened with me in top 4 of my international championship caused a catalyst, leading to a change of rulings, especially on stream. However, it was really unfortunate that that started because I got penalized and lost my top 4 match. And they're discussing the ruling here still. I think they are agreeing that's an accident, but I think they're deciding whether or not it was an advantage gained, knowing that there's an energy prize. There was, I think there should be no advantage gained because there's multiple searches with cards like Artisan,
Yeah.
Ultra Ball, Poffin, all done in multiple different situations.
Right.
Um, Zero
Well,
advantage
anyways,
happened.
something interesting about the board state is that if you chose to evo the two Dreepies instead of the Natu is actually in KO range of Munkidori ability plus Flutter Mane attack, which is
Yep.
something that could come up in certain situations. Not going to come up this time, so now Gardevoir has to decide what is the best attack this turn. It might just be Flutter Mane still.
Gardevoir does have access to evolving into Gardevoir here and a Dark Energy from
Yeah.
Munkidori, so they can uh, evolve into Gardevoir and set up something, but I don't think they want to. I think it's just going to be an evolve into Flutterman or just attack with Flutterman, do 90 damage to the active and put 2 damage counters, probably on, I don't know, something like another Dracloak and just like RGP, just put some pressure on it, make them have a Dracloak the following turn. This 90 damage is actually pretty important because the 90 damage means that now you can move 30, put it to 120 with a Munkidori in the following turn, hit it with Gardevoir for 190, and then another Munkidori will one-shot the Dragapult on a following turn at any point in time.
Yeah.
But a boss's orders was drawn. There is a Psychic Energy in hand, so we can see here there's a Airmail coming through. Energy moved to the hands. Xatu ability coming through. 2 onto this Dracloak. Another Dracloak in hand. This is where the chain of cards coming up. We're going to go ahead and do another one. Candy is useless here in this point in the game. Goes to the bottom of the deck. Vessel coming in.
So we see the Psychic Attachment on the bench cloak, actually. So I wonder if there's something like a Turo, but no, just another attachment from hand.
Yep, another attachment, yep.
And what do we attack this turn? I guess a Curlia, right?
I think Curlia seems like a great attacker here. We just knock one out because the other person wasn't able to establish a third Curlia. So now this last Curlia has to become a Gardevoir. But I think you just put the 6 onto the Curlia anyway, put a lot of pressure on there if you can. Force them to evolve it into Gardevoir or do something with it. Because if not, you get to... I mean, we just go 2-2-2, right? 2-2-2 makes sense to me. So we guarantee at least one more prize potentially next turn, like a 2-prize turn. Flutterman comes back up, which makes sense to me. Turo in hand off the top deck.
In theory, you could 6 the Curlia if you think it's going to evolve into Gardevoir EX, and then you can hit it for 200 and then 6 again later in the game, but I think this is the safer play.
Now, the funniest part about this play is the
Oh,
Cresselia just gets a free turn to do whatever you want.
that's true. That's true. So the 6 is probably actually better if you have the knowledge that Cresselia is in this deck.
Now, we're going to go ahead and trade, set up our board. Just keep the chain of stuff going. We're going to go ahead and see some more cards. Irida there, another Psychic Energy. Irida coming through.
Interesting interaction, though, is that if you use Munkidori to heal one of your Pokemon, that's less damage than your Cresselia is doing. So you might need to evolve into Gardevoir EX if you want to take a knockout this turn.
I think it's fine to evolve into Gardevoir EX because there's no...
yeah, there's no one-shot potential, right?
Yeah, there's no risk, right? And then so you can just go ahead and accelerate the one. You can just evolve into Gardevoir, retreat your Fluttermane, accelerate 1 energy to the Cresselia. We're going to go ahead and put the Screamtail and those 2 things back. And now I think we're going to go for, I think it's probably a snipe on the Manaphy, all things considered. Or the...
You can knock out your cloak. You can do.
You can knock out your cloak. Yep.
Turn. Yeah. You can actually not only just knock out your cloak, you can do more with the Munkidori, and you can start putting some pressure on Manaphy as well if you want to.
Or you can do 1 here, 1 to the Flutterman as well. Or you can put it on Gardevoir as a free retreater. And you can do move 2 damage counters to the active from one of your things you accelerate to, which then puts the active at 110, which then puts it in range to get hit by a Gardevoir plus a Munkidori. Did that make sense to everybody? Did that make sense to you, Victor?
Yeah, It did mostly. How much damage does Dragapult have on it right now?
90. So with one ability this turn, Gardevoir ability, plus a Munkidori ability this turn, Dragapult goes to
What's that?
110.
120.
110 because we only have 2 damage counters to move.
Okay, yeah, 110, sure.
And so next turn we can go hit with Gardevoir plus one more Munkidori ability after we accelerate to the active,
Yeah,
giving us a knockout on the active.
yeah. That's true.
People in the chat here that are watching with us are asking how I can do this math at 4 a.m. This should tell you guys how deeply my brain is ingrained in Pokemon that even in my sleep, I'm doing Pokemon math. You guys might be playtesting only during the day. I playtest at all hours, even in my own sleep. I go to bed listening to things. I have the Dragapult math playlist on repeat when I go to bed. It looks like we are out of Psychic Energies, though, so we do need to Arven back for something like Rod here. Because if this Dragapult goes down, we are losing resources, and there is a Rod. I think our player does acknowledge that we do need to do this. But there's only one Rod left in the deck. And the Rod does need to come back and put back this Double Ultra Cloak and a Psychic. I still don't like this because this is like our last Psychic, and we're making this play, but we're just going to pop it and get another one out of the board. We get to take out the Crest, which is nice and free. But like I said earlier, this Dragapult would have been a free knockout this turn if we had just gone for the Munkidori play. It's still fine because we can do it over 2 turns. Because we can attack with Gardevoir this upcoming turn and Munkidori. 3 of the 6 damage counters to get pulled off the board. But it's just like we could have played this a little bit cleaner, taken 2 prizes here, and then the board just becomes our oyster. This Rotom becomes a completely free prize at some point. And then we can go from there. Putting back Screamtail doesn't make a lot of sense to me because Screamtail also, like, we still have a Manaphy to deal with. 6 damage got us to the Kirlia. We're going to go ahead and see what the outcome of the game is at this point. I think attacking with Gardevoir EX is probably the best option. Gardevoir doesn't really go down. You have options to Turo stuff back onto the board. Set up your board that way. So I think bring up Flutterman for a free retreat option here. Put energies into your discard. Establish another Ralts. Turo is already in hand. We can go ahead and Refinement. Yep. I mean, there's also a world where we find Screamtail here and just knock out for game. Or not knock out for game, but like put ourselves in a really good spot. I do think we get rid of the Sinnoh. I don't think you need Sinnoh anymore. Like, it just doesn't make sense to keep the Sinnoh. Palpad seems useful. I probably would have gotten rid of Sinnoh. I do think that this is a great turn to attack with Gardevoir. And then Turo on the following turn. Bench Ralts. You have 2 Turos. You can bench Ralts this turn. Turo Kirlia. Put Ralts back down. Retreat into Gardevoir. Attach 3 energies to Gardevoir. 1 from hand, potentially even. Munkidori 3 damage counters onto the active. Hit with Gardevoir. And we're good.
Looks like better to Turo the Gardevoir, or is it better to Ultra Ball for no Gardevoir EX and evolve it?
We're starting with Turo. I think it's better to Turo because you have 2 Turos.
Sure.
This is why I wouldn't have gotten rid of the Palpad. I think Sinnoh is just completely useless in the hand because now we would have gotten access to 4 Turos, and I think that's like our win condition, right? We're just going to attack with, looks like we're looking to chase this down and potentially set up for a Screamtail play. So now the active Dragapult goes to 180, which means that a Gardevoir KO does get there too much next turn. So now this Dragapult's going to get an attack off, but what are you really getting done here is a big question. Like, both players are in a situation where they need to start pushing prizes and getting stuff done, but the Dragapult deck seems like it is finding a standstill because the Gardevoir deck has established itself in a position where the Munkidori is really cooking, and we're in a spot where, like, okay, set up your Dracloaks, get your Dragapults up and running, but next turn is going to be a 3 prize turn, almost certainly, and this Rotom becomes an insane liability. So even if you can, like, move stuff off your board, it's not like you're going to be able to clean everything up, and 2-shotting a Dragapult seems pretty easy for everything in Gardevoir's deck and arsenal, especially if you just don't run out of 1 prize. Countercatcher becomes live, and then the game can be wrapped up from that position.
So it looks like the prize map right now for Gardevoir is taking out this Dragapult plus that Manaphy and then knocking out that Rotom for the 5 prizes. I do agree though, if the Palpad was left in the hand, I think Gardevoir's position is a little bit better because you can basically Turo loop the
Yeah.
Dragapult, which
And
would be
the game
nice.
feels unlosable from that position, right?
Yeah, not gonna be the case. So there is still outs. Looking at Devo currently in the hand, if damage gets set up in a weird way, if combined maybe with something like an unfair stamp, potentially there is a way for Dragapult to take back the winning position. But for now, I think Gardevoir is in the lead.
And here we could just honestly look to set up our board. We can logically even Turo up the Ralts that got hit here. Make some more Ralts. We can make 2 more Ralts this turn.
2 more Corlias.
Sorry, yeah, 2 more Corlias. We can set up for a Scream Tail KO for game. We have a lot of options here. We can go Hyper Blow, get the other Curly out of the deck. We did rot it back. We can go get it. There's no reason not to get it, I think. I mean, we're going to Turo this, actually, so probably not. Misplay. No, it's not misplay, because we want to keep damage. This is fine. I was going to say misplay, but I actually disagree, because I disagree with myself. I contradict myself, because we want to move damage counters off of the active Gardevoir and move them onto the Manaphy instead. So in this situation, we can go ahead and accelerate 2 energies from discard to Gardevoir and attach the Dark Energy from hand. And I think we can go ahead and put Drifloon back into the deck with a Super Rod. We're just going to do 3. Also completely fine here. I think we can Super Rod back this turn. Yeah, price is good. Get information. Psychic Energy. We can go ahead and bench the Scream Tail. Attach the Big Charm. Yep. Set up a scenario where we just attack the active. And now Rotom becomes a sitting duck for the game. We, as viewers, know that the Dragapult player does not have another Rod in deck, I believe. I think they used their Rods that are left. And now we're in a position where the Dragapult player has an attack here this turn, but what do they really accomplish with this attack? Like, Turo seems like just an insane card in this matchup. Like, we're able to take a knockout here on Curlia, but what does that even really do for the game? Like, the 3 damage counters will still be left on the board. We can't really do too much. We do have Unfair Stamp.
Have Radiant Alakazam this turn, which means you can get a KO.
On Curlia, yep. We do have Unfair Stamp, so it's like going to be, I think, Unfair Stamp, limit them to 1 draw effect.
Yeah, limit them to Curlia.
But the Gardevoir deck is pretty low on cards. I think it's like 10 or 11 cards. Both players are picking up their pace of play, though, so I do think they realize there's a time constraint. It is whoever has less prizes left at the end of time will win the set. We're going to go ahead and see 2 cards, 2-5. There's a Boss's Orders and a Greninja. I don't think it gets any better than this.
You still need Gardevoir, right?
The Gardevoir doesn't get knocked out.
Oh, right.
The Gardevoir stays in play.
Too tanky.
The Dragapult player just attacks for turn, and that does signal the end of the game, because all we have to do is Boss's Orders, up the Rotom, Gardevoir attacks, 190 damage, and Gardevoir is moving on to the finals up against Miraidon, a historically terrible matchup for Gardevoir. So let's see which deck can come out on top. The new Gardevoir with Munkidori that can actually one-shot things without their usual attackers, or the fast and speedy Miraidon that might try to just steamroll through this Gardevoir deck.